που ακούσαμε ήδη και χθες, θα τον ακούσουμε και θα τον απολαύσουμε σε διάφορα εθνικά όργανα. Are you ready?
You want me to start?
Yes. Yes, please.
Please start.
Okay. Thank you.
We have no slides. Nothing. Please. Καλησπέρα. Συγγνώμη ότι δεν μπορώ να μιλήσω στα ελληνικά αυτό το βράδυ, γιατί θα είναι περισσότερο δύσκολο. Γιατί, δηλαδή, ελπίζω ότι εσείς θα καταλάβετε τα αγγλικά μου. So, my talk today is about the evidence for dance and music from the Paleolithic to the first civilizations, and incidentally how musicality helped us to become the world-dominating species that we are. I have brought some small instruments to demonstrate the sounds of remote antiquity, some of which you will be already familiar with. I'll start off with a question that nobody, as far as I know, has an answer to. Why are humans musical? Why do we enjoy creating sound sequences along with the body movements which we call dance? And why do we do it in groups? No other animal does this, including the other members of the Hominidae family to which we belong. Perhaps only we Cro-Magnons have ever done it. If we are the only musical sapiens, or the most musical, it may have something to do with why we have taken over the planet. Let me explain. 100,000 years ago, humans did not see themselves as the most powerful beings on Earth, as we do today, because they obviously weren't. Other animals were far more powerful. Humans had to use all their ingenuity just to survive. Over time, the conventional thinking goes, their comparative physical weakness caused them to compensate by evolving superior intelligence, resulting in our rise to global domination around 10,000 years ago, following the last ice age. Brain power alone could not be responsible for mankind's sudden technical development. Other animals, including those with larger brains than us, process information just as we do, learn just as we do, observe obligations and ethics, even cheat and deceive just as we do. Our success can't be ascribed solely to our organizational ability either. Bees and ants are much better organized than we are. The world historian Yuval Noah Harari, in his book Homo Deus, has demonstrated that our unique ability to cooperate flexibly in large numbers is what got us where we are today. Social insects cooperate in large numbers, but inflexibly. Elephants cooperate flexibly, but only with a small number of other elephants that they know well. Humans, like our chimpanzee cousins, can't know more than around 100 individuals well. And while chimps regard all stranger chimps with hostility, our ability to cooperate flexibly with people we don't know, forming much larger groups, is the reason that we gain dominance and chimpanzees didn't. Harari says that organized religion and centralized authority come about when large groups of humans work together on horticulture, farming, and massive building projects. Something funny is going on with the sound. Is it okay? Yeah. But there is a missing link here, because there have to be enough people already able to cooperate flexibly in large numbers for these epiphenomena to appear. Harari seems to think such cooperation happens spontaneously, but of course nothing happens spontaneously. There has to be a catalyst, an enabling factor somewhere. Something has to get us from the small band of people that know and trust each other to the larger group of 1,000 or more without the small bands fighting and the whole project falling apart. Or there would have to be a king or an overall authority, but hunter-gatherer bands would have had no concept of a king, nor any interest in an overall authority figure. The early evidence for music among Cro-Magnons and even among Neanderthals and Denisovans seems to provide this missing link. Can you see this? It's a bone flute. That is the sound of a bone flute. Bone flutes have been found in a cave in Germany that date back 36,000 years. They are the earliest human artifacts discovered that are not purely functional, and they are musical instruments. Current academic thinking based on this evidence is that it was music which enabled small bands of Cro-Magnons to form larger groups and cooperate more successfully than other sapiens species. But with these flutes, their sound doesn't carry far, certainly not in the open air, where a large group would have to gather. No, it would have been drums that did that job. The drums would have been made of wood and skin, as they are today, and since nothing survives from the Paleolithic except bone and stone, the earliest drums we have are pottery goblet drums from the Neolithic. That's 6,000 years ago. These drums, as you can see, are tubelekia. They are found in Germany, not in the Middle East. That's very interesting. Some cultures don't use drums. Stick clicking, rattles, hand clapping, and singing provide rhythmic impetus just as well. The object on the left has been identified as possibly a Paleolithic bull roarer based on its shape and the hole at the top. One of the most interesting things about it is the regular lines and right angles that have been carved on it, like the lines on the figurine and the bracelet from the same period. This is 18 to 12,000 years ago. These are abstract patterns that don't represent anything in nature and don't have any meaning apart from their aesthetic appeal. Paleolithic artists were masters of figurative art, as the cave paintings of Lascaux and elsewhere demonstrate. But all their non-figurative decoration features regular repetition: lines, zigzags, lozenges, rings, dots, and spirals. Designs whose counterpart in sound is regular rhythm. Now, you may object that regular rhythmic sounds and movements are not exclusive to humans. They are produced by a bird flying or a horse galloping. Or you may point out that a beehive contains regular hexagons. But these shapes and rhythms are strictly functional. A horse, a bird, or a bee does not respond to regular rhythm the way humans do, though some animals can be trained to appear to do so. Bees dance, but not in synchronized groups. Birds produce melody, but not in unison. Every mammal has experienced the regular rhythm of its mother's heartbeat in utero, but it is only humans that deliberately make regular rhythms in synchronization and that make musical sounds in unison. Every blackbird and every whale has its own song, which we can distinguish as its species song, but they don't sing in coordination with each other. The first Cro-Magnons were physically and intellectually identical to us, except that their brains were a little bit bigger than ours are today. Modern technology has not come about because of increased brain processing power. It has come about because we are capable of cooperating in ways that no other animal is. So, why did technological progress not happen earlier? Many reasons to do with environment, population density, and so on. Once the right factors are in place, any evolutionary process is exponential. It traces an increasing upward trajectory with most of the curve below the median, so growth seems to happen suddenly. An unhindered exponential curve only stops when it reaches the limit for its environment, then it goes into a sudden decline, like an aeroplane stalling. This is what happens to civilizations when they overextend themselves, like the Romans, the Maya, the Rapa Nui, Great Zimbabwe, and many others. Our love of melody and rhythm is evident from earliest childhood. All humans make music and dance together and have done so for at least as long as we have been scratching figures on rocks. This is the Paleolithic. Art depicting dance. Left is rock art, and then there's Neolithic art. This is from China, and I think these are all, yes, sorry, these are all from China. And below right is early vase art. Notice that all the dancers are performing individually. This is Africa, Namibia, South Africa, Sahara. The dancers are performing separately again. You start to see linked dancing, chain dancing, in the Paleolithic iconography, India, Arabia, and the Anasazi of the southwestern USA. Now this should be very interesting to you. It is to me. On the far left, this is a little clay model from Greece 3,000 years ago, and Crete 4,000 years ago, and below, on the left, the Maya 2,000 years ago in Central America, and in Mexico as well. Notice the similarities. The same shoulder hold and Eastern Mediterranean steps are seen in the dancing of the Upper Amazon tribes, which I'll show you in a minute. By the time of the Fertile Crescent civilizations, a more refined music had developed, and this is largely what the iconography of ancient Egypt shows. That there is nowhere any depiction of sound vibration being used to raise a 100-ton block of stone. If this happened, as some believe, it was before the Egyptian civilization. There's no depiction of that in the iconographic record. On the other hand, we do have living music and dance traditions going back millennia, and some very old instruments which correspond with them. The Egyptian ney, for example, is still played throughout the Middle East and North Africa. all familiar with the ney. The transverse flute was unknown to the ancient Egyptians and is still not used in areas where the ney and its relative the kaval and floyera here in Greece are played. The transverse method comes from further east. This is a Chinese ΔΙ.ΔΕ. How can we know what music sounded like in remote antiquity? We know what the instrumental sounds were in most cases because the same instruments that were played in ancient times are still played today in the same places. We don't know what the tuning of the harps, lutes, and lyres of ancient Egypt were, but we do know that the whole spacing of the pipes hasn't changed. So the tuning of their stringed instruments must have been the same. They must have conformed as they are depicted in performance together. Here is a reconstructed Egyptian double pipe that you can see being played in the top right-hand corner. We don't know what the tunes were, but this is the sound. "9,000-year-old flutes recently found in China have the same equidistant hole spacing as folk flutes made in China today." I will just get one out. This is called a paidi. D means flute. Gu, in this illustration, is the name of this bone flute. Gu means bone, D means flute. So as you can see, all the holes are the same distance apart. And this is the sound. This is the scale. Sounds like our major scale, but it's not quite. It's a very sharp fourth, the flat fifth. This is again a very flat seventh. So it is similar, but not exactly the same. So this is just to illustrate that the modern Eurasian heptatonic scale, based on a 12 semitone division, is roughly equal, but only roughly equal to the ancient Chinese heptatonic scale. Why equidistant hole spacing? Well, without going into too much technicality, the pitch system produced by equal hole spacing does not correspond to any naturally occurring pitch system, such as the overtone series, which I will demonstrate later. I suppose it is a function of early man's fascination with regularity, that perfection for them lay in equal arrangement. The resulting pitches would be accepted as musical. On the ney, if you take out the two holes that were added to accommodate later scales, yes, you see equal hole spacing. So that was the scale most likely used by the ancient Egyptians. Same scale as the Chinese flute. On the mijwiz, you see the same equal hole spaces which still produce this ancient scale played all across the Middle East and North Africa. In ancient times, the pipes were played separately, as I demonstrated earlier. Nowadays, they're bound together so that each pair of holes can be covered with one finger. This is the same as sabuna, tulum, and these kind of instruments that you know. Another form of double pipe is the argul, a single chanter with a drone, so only one pipe, but the second pipe is isokratis, which allows you to hear more clearly the intervals produced by equal hole spacing. All those three instruments are from Egypt. I feel the need to draw attention somewhere, and now seems as good a time as any, to the fact that what we call musical harmony probably goes back only a few hundred years. Polyphony is a recent European invention. Chordal accompaniment, or homophony, is more recent still, about 200 years. The tonic-dominant harmonization so popular in African music today is an import from Europe. In the olden days, musical sophistication consisted in the decoration and embellishment of the melody, as it still does today in non-Western tradition, including, for example, the old music of Greece or Ireland. For most of human history, music was either monophonic, meaning a single melody alone, or heterophonic, meaning simultaneous varying versions of a single melody. At the end of this presentation, I will demonstrate two examples of traditional heterophony from Sardinia and from the Congo. The following film clips are of survivals of dance from pre-modern societies: Inuit, Samburu, Ainu, Huli, Yatmul, Apache, and Kayapo. Afterwards, I'll show instruments and depictions from prehistoric times to the classical civilizations of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and demonstrate a few more instruments. Now we need sound. won't play the whole thing because, you know, ketalipa, it's the same. This is the Samburu from northern Kenya. Yeah, we need the sound all the time now. I like the way that woman looked at the camera. This is the Ainu. It's from the northernmost island of Japan. They are the aboriginal inhabitants of the Japanese islands. This is the Huli tribe from Papua New Guinea. This is from a documentary taken a long time ago that still has the American voiceover.
They play possum skin drums, and they dance in an imitation of the bird of paradise. They also sing, and their singing is unforgettable.
Papua New Guinea is a very interesting place, actually, because you find all the examples of global culture that you find everywhere else in the world, all the types of wind instrument, all the types of language, the tonal languages of China, the what you call it when you join words together, agglutinative languages of Western Eurasia and so on. They're all represented in Papua New Guinea. And this is a very old settlement of Papua New Guinea. When the first cameras arrived, it was in 1970. They'd never seen white people before that time. So this is the Yatmul tribe from Papua New Guinea. That's my favorite. I love that. This is the White Mountain Apache from the southern United States. They have a thing that they call the crown dance. They wear these elaborate headdresses. I won't play all of this. And this is the kayapo from the Amazon. It's not quite Kalamachianos. I'll just say that the dances are quite varied, but what they all have in common is that they're accompanied by voice and percussion only, with one exception, which is from that fascinating place, Papua New Guinea, where so many of the world's ancient performance traditions are represented. Now, that's the end of the examples of dancing. I'll just go through some more instruments now quickly. I don't know if you can hear this, it's very quiet. Basically, you can make tunes. Oops. You can make tunes on the bow by using your mouth to resonate. The mouth bow is one of the oldest instruments. The oldest depiction of a performance is thought to be this Paleolithic shaman. You can see him there with the red arrow. But he turns out to be a hunter disguised in an animal skin. If you see him sideways, that's what he's doing. He's dressed in an animal skin with his bow in his mouth, sneaking up into the middle of a herd of aurochs. This is the pyramid city of Caral, the oldest city in the Americas, 5,000 years old, recently discovered on the coastal plain of Peru. Small pelican bone flutes were discovered in the ruins. I couldn't get any pelican bones, but I made a replica out of cane. The likely playing technique for this flute is to blow across the center hole and stop the ends with the thumbs. The same technique is used, by the way, to play the Chinese ku di. It's an identical flute played in China. Those are the notes you get. The world's oldest wooden instruments discovered in County Wicklow Ireland. It is not understood how they were played. There are no finger holes, and each pipe has a chamfered end. Looks much to me like a cavall. In my opinion, this is a set of overtone flutes. Here is one from Tanzania. I don't know if you can see, but the notes are produced by stopping the end of the pipe. So you get the harmonic series. Overtone flutes are played in many countries of Europe and Scandinavia using the overtone series as a pitch system, used by the Ituri Pygmies of the Congo, the Wagogo tribe of Tanzania, who play this filimbi. In Papua New Guinea, the last clip you saw was they were playing overtone flutes there. And in the overtone singing technique of Siberia and Mongolia. I'll just try and do some of that, if I can focus. So you see, the overtone series is very worldwide. You find it all over the place, which means that it is very old. Now, animal horns have been used as trumpets everywhere from ancient times. The side hole was preferred in ancient Ireland, as it still is in Africa. I heard an echo. So this is cow horn, which again you find everywhere. Metal trumpets are found everywhere, from Yucatan to Kazakhstan. This one is from Morocco. So this is what these Mayas are sounding like, and probably also the Carnix players, the Celtic warriors leading troops into battle. Maybe also Tutankhamun's trumpets, we don't know. They were a bit shorter. Now you recognize this image. Divergent double pipe from the Greek vase is Eros, and the Etruscan is from the Cave of the Leopard in Italy. Notice the similarities. The hairstyle, they both have the same hairstyle with the band, finger positions and everything. In the Western Mediterranean, you have these ithyphalic pipers, that the male piper has an erection. Look at the expression on this woman's face. She looks a bit shocked. The divergent double pipe is played also in modern Baluchistan. Let me see. I'm not going to play the launedas because it's not so hard to play, but it takes all day to get into tune, and I don't want to have to spend all my time trying to tune the launedas. That's the sound of the donali. Probably has some relation to the Eastern Mediterranean double pipe. The ney, you already heard that. This is the ancient Egyptian guy, and obviously it's the same thing, same instrument. Panpipes. Everybody knows what a panpipe sounds like. But they're also, as well as being very old, they're very widespread. You find them everywhere in the world. Africa, China, just the Vikings, everywhere. The Central American ocarinas and clay flutes. That's the ocarina. Next is the Egyptian, the ancient Egyptian bow lyre is still played up the Nile, in the Nilotic peoples, the Acholi of Uganda particularly. Musicians in ancient Egypt were female as much as male, except for military music. As you can see, the military musician is playing a zurna. The drummer is playing a hand drum similar to an Indian madhal. Now, this instrument is an ngoni. It's still played in Africa, West Africa and North Africa. It's the same as this instrument that the Egyptian lady is playing. That's the sound. A dance in ancient Egypt. The lowest panel shows a pair of men performing a dance sequence, just like 4 frames of a film strip. You can see the dance happening as you look at the frames in sequence. Egyptian women dancing and drumming. Percussionists in ancient Egypt were always women, apart from the military drummers. Harps and neys were more of a man thing. Apart from the double pipe, was usually played by women. Today's Berbers are the inheritors of ancient Egyptian performance. You can see the similarities. The women are playing percussion, which they're not allowed to do in Islamic societies. The clapping is parallel hands like this, not like the way we clap. It's very much a North African, Middle Eastern way of doing things. By the original illustration on the wall of a tomb by the Great Pyramid, dated around 4,500 years ago, are the consonants M, M, sh, t, m, m, sh, t. 2 of these pipes are in the British Museum. One of them was found with a piece of thick reed or straw inserted into the hollow of the pipe, the upper end so compressed as to leave a very small aperture for the admission of the breath. This is a quote from Sir J. Gardner Wilkinson's book, The Ancient Egyptians. In other words, what was stuck in the end was a double reed. The modern inheritor is the instrument known in Kurdistan as may, in Iran as balaban, in Armenia as tsiranapog, also called by the Russian word duduk. This is my reconstruction of an Egyptian reed pipe. Oops. That would be the sound of that instrument there. This is the modern duduk, which you can see me playing in the Scolio Musiki des Drámas, Musico Scolio. I think in 2006, 2004. My hair wasn't so white in those days. I would play longer, but we have to catch up on time. Now these are, I don't know if you can see very well, the color's not good. But these maps of global distribution tell us something about the age of civilizations and their connectedness with each other. Flutes are the oldest and also the most varied of all pitched instruments. I could have included other classes of instrument and pitch system if there were time. So that was panpipes. You can see it's quite a big distribution. This is fipple flutes. The fipple is, if you know what a fipple is, it's this mechanical device just cutting a slot into the head of an instrument, so you can either fit it on or play it like that. It gives you an automatic note production. So this is a very old technique. Transverse flutes, that's the side-blown flute that I told you. Ocarina. You find this in the Amazon, the nose flute. It's a type of ocarina that uses the mouth as a sound chamber. And the oblique end-blown flute, the ney, is obviously where you see it in the Near East and the Middle East, North Africa, also in Tanzania and in Papua New Guinea. They have them there. And the vertical end-blown flute, which is like a cana. This is a cana from Peruvian Andes. But you also find this in China, the same type of flute. I said earlier that I wanted to give you some examples of heterophony, that is to say, layered monophony. Here are some very ancient traditions still being performed in the present day. A Sardinian man, Aurelio Porcu, playing the launedas, triple pipe, followed by the group singing of the Ituri rainforest women of Congo.
È seguita un'esibizione di Aurelio Porcu sulla Simponia e sugli Spinellu.
We missed the sound on this one. No, there's no sound. I'm sorry. You didn't hear the Congo pygmies singing, but it's very beautiful. I recommend the Ituri pygmies. Fantastic sound. Anyway, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.
We would like to thank Mr. Cambell for the unique demonstration of the earliest known musical instruments all over the world. Surely musicality enables people to feel bonded together in large groups, something which distinguishes man from other species.
Let's say women too.
Yes, yes. Your presentation was both interesting, very interesting, but relaxing as well. Thank you for all.